Today, we are going to talk about me going back to school. If college actually makes you a better entrepreneur. Neil, you went to school too.
Yeah, I know, but you're going back to school. That's the title. Eric goes back to school. Does college help you become a better entrepreneur?
All right, you go.
Well, you're the one going back to school, not me. You're at MIT right now, right? How long have
Well,
you
yeah,
been there
okay.
for?
So let's set the stage over here. So I was in an entrepreneurs group called Entrepreneurs Organization. And I joined this entrepreneurial masters program that they have. It's kind of the flagship, one of the most valuable things that they have. So like if you're doing over seven figures, recommend that you join EO and then eventually try to join other groups like YPO. And they have a Harvard program. So EO has an MIT program and it's a 3-year thing. And you go each year in June for about 5 days, and you go from like 8 a.m. until like 10 p.m. or something like that. And you're just sitting in the classroom, you're learning from people that have founded companies like Priceline, Ancestry.com, and people that have like that are like best-selling authors, and they have entire frameworks, right? And so each year, and then I'll turn it over to you, Neil, to ask questions. They pick a cohort of about 65 entrepreneurs, and I think EO has like 12 or 13,000 people worldwide now. And in some countries, by the way, EO, like when I visited Japan, one guy was the president of a chapter that had only publicly traded companies, and his company does like $200 million a year. So there are some heavy hitters in that group. And so I applied to this thing to see if I could learn anything. And Neil, I'll turn it over to you.
So first off, do you end up getting a degree, by the way, when you go do this program?
You get a piece of paper at the end of it. So you don't get like an official MIT degree. It's at the MIT Endicott House. But I will say if you do the YPO version, the Harvard version, which is like 9 years, I believe, you actually do get a piece of
Wow.
paper and you're part of that program.
Yeah, but it's not like a traditional college degree. But either way, I'm assuming, right? It's not.
No.
So first question for you is, you said it's a 3-year program. How many years have you been doing it in person that you went to June because of COVID probably slowed things down?
2 years.
All right. So you've done the 5 days straight. What did you learn in those 5 days? Like, was it valuable? Great networking? Did you just learn anything? Do you got to take tests?
Yeah. No tests. So the first year, each year I go, I just want one takeaway, right? So the first year, my takeaway was determining what your X factor was. And so what that means is when you think about your company, what is that unique advantage? And there's a really good story here. So, we all know like these fans that spin over your head, right? But there's this company that had these ginormous fans. Like you put them in a warehouse and they're just huge. They got to be like 20 to 40 feet or something like that, right? And they were struggling because they didn't know how to differentiate until one day a customer called in and said, "Hey, are you the company that does those big ass fans?" And so they rebranded their name to Big Ass Fans, and their logo is a donkey. So that's one example of having an X factor. And so when I was thinking about it, like a couple of years ago, I was like, man, our X factor would be, because I know a bunch of friends that do this pay for performance thing. I think that would be the X factor, right? My problem with that is we didn't hire the right people for that. But that was an example of determining what an X factor was.
Yeah. And then the next question I have for you is networking. When you go to back to school, if someone's looking to do an MBA, I'm assuming you're meeting similar people that would be in MBA programs. Has the networking been great? You're talking about Priceline and some of these other companies. Are you meeting executives from these places? What are the other classmates like?
Yeah. So the classmates, will talk about them first. So some of these companies, one guy, like his company does like a couple $100 million a year. So it's pretty significant. And I believe he comes from India. One guy, he sold his company after the first year, I think for like 100 or something like that. So, and then you have some people that are actually kind of earlier in their career. Maybe they just crossed the 1 million threshold. So I would say it's a mix, but everyone there is coming with an open mind and they're trying to learn from everyone. There's no arrogance. It's like I have a bigger business than yours. Everyone's just like really nice to each other. That's the first one.
Would you recommend going back to school for someone who wants to learn entrepreneurship or become a better entrepreneur?
For this one, yes, I do recommend it because there's so many different. We also picked up a hiring framework too, and that's where I learned the Who framework, right? Which is using scorecards when you're hiring, thinking like the way you screen like really quickly. And so I picked up that entire framework, and we've been using that framework ever since the first year I did it. So I would highly recommend it if you're fortunate enough to cross the 7-figure threshold. Join EO, apply for EMP immediately, and then if you do join YPO, apply for the Harvard program immediately.
So the reason I wanted to do this episode, and I was the one who came up with the title and the topic, was a lot of people talk about college and how college is not useful if you want to learn entrepreneurship or marketing. And I agree, in which you don't really need a 4-year degree, but that doesn't mean college or school isn't useful. You can learn from YouTube, or you can join EO or YPO or any organization, and you can still learn a lot from places like MIT or Harvard or Yale or whatever they may be, because you have to remember there's a lot of smart people that came from these places that know what they're talking about, and these colleges are really well networked. You just don't have to do it in a form that is necessarily a 4-year or a 2-year degree. You can just do it where you go in and out for specific programs or specific classes to learn what you're looking to learn, or you can just use YouTube or some other type of programs that you can find online.
Yeah, let me give you a breakdown here. So the EO EMP program, that's 3 years, and you go every June for about 5 days or so. The Harvard program, I believe the YPO Harvard program, I believe that's 9 years, and each year you go for 30 days straight, right? But the point is, you go back to work, and then you come back, you update the first night. It's just updates across the board. So everyone's going for about 1 or 2 minutes or so, and the updates go for about 3 hours, and you're just seeing kind of where everyone is at. And the hope is that we're all growing together and we're trying to help each other out. And I will say I've made some lifelong friends in that group as well that I otherwise wouldn't have met. So you want to meet people that have the same kind of goals. They're like-minded and they're very humble. And these things are ultimately helpful. I'm not saying EO or YPO is the end all be all. Just find what works for you. And by the way, there's a private founders community, the Leveling Up founders community. And so you can apply for that. That's kind of the complementary thing to YPO and EO. You can just go to levelingup.com/founders, and we'll catch you later.